It's time for another video. So I know the kind of things that I want to share with you about my job, but I was curious to see the kind of things that other people wanted to know. So I thought the easiest way to get that information would be to ask on Instagram if anyone had any questions for me. I got a whole bunch of really cool questions, so I'm going to answer them now. If I'm looking down, it's because I'm reading them off my phone, not being a rude bitch. The first one actually came from a YouTube video, and it was someone wondering why I can't show some things backstage. That is because of protecting people's privacy backstage. There's a lot of people getting changed and doing quick changes side stage and that kind of thing. And then there's also preserving the magic of the show. There are a million things that happen in a show that would be ruined as a surprise or a spectacle if you could see every prop, every set piece, every costume, those kind of things. Do you ever say no to a gig and why? Absolutely. I've said no to a lot of gigs. The first most obvious reason I think is money. If someone's not paying me enough to live off, I can't actually afford to take the job. This is my full-time job, so it needs to full-time support me, right? And also because of personal beliefs. There are shows that I have said no to because I don't like the way that they treat their company, I don't like the way they treat their staff. I know that they are going to try and take advantage of people if they can, and I don't want my name associated with those places, which was a lesson that I kind of had to learn the hard way. Basically, if I know that a venue or a festival or a job sucks, I'm not going to work with them, I'm not going to associate myself with them, I'm not going to invest my energy and my skills into their success. How do you find your ADHD does or doesn't impact your career? I personally think that it makes me really good at my job. I think that my ability to think really, really quickly is something that is an asset in a workplace which can change and requires a fast-paced reaction to a lot of things. The things that I associate with being neurodivergent are that I'm constantly hyper-aware of people's body language and the way that they are acting and interacting with other people, which I think allows for me to be, or try to be, a more considerate MoniqueTech. I think that being so hyper aware of everything means that I know where everything is, I know what's going on, and I can think quickly on my feet if I need to. Knowing how HOSH turned out, would you do it again? Would I have done the exact HOSH that I did, Phantom of the Opera? Absolutely, 100%. I would do it again right now. It was absolutely heinous, but one of the best experiences of my life. Would I do another HOSH that was just another random show? An opera? No. I was happy to sacrifice my well-being for a short amount of time for my dream show with one of the best companies I've ever seen, absolutely, but to just do, like, it's not a sustainable work environment. The being outside part really does take a toll on the crew and on the cast and on the production itself. I don't think that I would be very pleasant to work with being on any other kind of HOSH unless it was a show that I really loved. HOSHs that I would go back for, Love Never Dies because we just did Phantom, maybe Sweeney Todd or Into the Woods or something like that, but again, they're not operas, so I think they just got away with doing Phantom, even though they've done West Side Story. So short answer, I would redo HOSH again. I don't regret doing it because of how chaotic it was, but I would not go back to do another HOSH season for just a random show. How do you find balancing work/life is working such unusual hours? I found it really difficult until I stopped telling myself that they were unusual hours. There is an entire world of people who work nighttime. Hospitality staff, service industry staff who work nighttime shifts. The narrative that a 9-to-5 Monday to Friday job is the norm is pretty confusing once you actually think about how few people work on that kind of a schedule. Once I stopped telling myself that I had to live by a 9-to-5 schedule, even though I was not working a 9-to-5 job, it changed my life. I stopped going to bed as soon as I came home or trying to force myself to. I now go to bed at like 2 or 3 in the morning every night because I usually finish work around midnight. Like, that's still pretty early to go to bed if you consider that most people who would finish a job at 5 o'clock don't go to bed until 10. They stay up for another 5 hours. So now I've just tried to do that. Once I started making friends who also work in similar job styles and in similar timetables, it opened up this world to me that was that this isn't really an unusual job. It's just that a lot of people don't expect it. Do you experience post-show drops and what do you do? I used to. I definitely did for my first couple of shows, but I think I got really lucky in that I am currently right now only just past a year working in professional theatre, and having done a bunch of festivals in my past as well, I definitely used to experience that feeling of sadness and kind of like grief almost when you finish up a show or you finish up a festival, because for the time that you're in it, you base your entire life off of that show. You socialize only with those people. The nature of the hours of the job kind of mean that you are cut off from your normal social circles and your family and your friends. So having that all of a sudden taken away from you can be pretty confronting if you're not accustomed to it, or if you haven't had the experience to make sure that you are maintaining the roots in your normal life outside of the show while you're on it. Like I said, I think I got pretty lucky that my first year of theatre I opened and closed. Well, right now I'm on Poppins while I'm filming this, and it is my 4th show in the last year, and I'm about to leave it to go open another show. So I've had to get used to saying goodbye. I've had to get used to knowing that this is just a job and that there is another job after this show. And I think that's the thing to do. I think that's really important, is to remember that all shows, all seasons are temporary, and that even if you don't feel ready to leave it yet, it's probably a good thing that shows end when they do, that over a long period of time, people leave, people come, people go in shows, which means that they're never exactly the same anyway. They're constantly changing. New cities bring out new complications, new emotions, new positives, new social interactions. You have no control over when it changes, not if it does, regardless of whether it's just the show ending or something changing within the show. Do you get sucked into the rock and roll lifestyle, parties, etc., working in the entertainment industry? I've never really been one for partying, but I absolutely used to really struggle with not going out after work, with not going to have a drink, with staying as long as everyone else was gonna stay, because especially when I was coming into shows, I felt like I was making up for lost time that other people had already invested in trying to cement these relationships that needed to happen quickly. When I was doing that, I found it really hard to say no to going out, to just go straight home, to prioritize other things in my life, which I don't know if you would count that as the rock and roll lifestyle. This year specifically, I've gotten really good at grounding myself in my life. Having that experience that, like I just talked about, shows will end, people will move on, people will come and go, has really reminded me that I need to keep touch with my life that is going to exist once the show ends. Because a lot of the relationships that you have on those shows in those situations are of circumstance. They're people that see you every day because you have the same workplace. They are not people who are going to keep touch with you and want to go out with you every day. You can't rely on that for all of your needs, for all of your social interaction. Shows end, social circles change, and you cannot sacrifice your relationships and your health for a show. Do you ever get stage fright if you have to go out in front of an audience? There are not many occasions in theatre that I ever have to go out in front of an audience, HOSH being the exception, but in normal gig or fringe or freelance world, there are plenty of times that I have to go out on stage or be in front of the crowd, and it doesn't bother me if I am doing a task, if I'm changing a mic, setting up for the next set, those kind of things. Quick changes, panic moments where I'm fixing something. There's absolutely no worry about how I look or any anxiety of stage fright because I'm fixing a problem. If I have to talk, sometimes I think the thing that gives me the most anxiety about crowds and addressing people is that I can never pick when it's going to bother me or not. I have addressed thousands of people, I've sang in front of thousands of people before and been totally fine, but I can give a mic talk sometimes and be anxious. I go red when I feel that anxiety. I go fully red, and once I feel myself starting to heat up, then I'm done, because I've spiraled into this, like, I'm red, they can all see, how do I chill out? Oh my god, I need to get out, they can see how stressed out I am, and it just spirals from there. Do you ever feel you have a parasocial relationship with the performers you work with? I fucking love this question. After I googled what parasocial relationships were, I loved this question. A parasocial relationship is a relationship where one person in the relationship knows lots of things and knows everything and is super familiar with the other person, and the other person doesn't really know anything about them. A really aggressive and obvious example of this is like a celebrity relationship, where a fan would know everything about the person that they follow and the person they follow doesn't even know they exist. I've definitely felt this way on some jobs, especially theatre, doing B-plot on shows that I am not at often, like I'm a swing. Not so much when you're there from the start and you have an opportunity to, in tech previews opening, develop those relationships with people, and when they're all also in the mindset that they're there to meet people and be introduced to people and they're figuring out where they fit socially in the workplace. But when you come in after that, it's this really bizarre experience, especially when your job doesn't often require you to interact with them. My perfect example of this, I think, is when I started Hamilton. I came in halfway through the season after a lockdown. All of those relationships had already been established, and I was there to do the B plot, which involved doing mic check before the show, which is a literal 10-second interaction with a person that you never otherwise speak to, and then going to monitor the show, other than the ensemble that I would mic up. So lead performers, I had literally no interactions with at any point, but because they were all over the promo for the show, I knew what they looked like, I knew what their voice sounded like because I listened to them sing every day. I know when they're sick, I know why they're sick, I know why they're off for long periods of time. There is so much information that I would know about these people who oftentimes didn't even know my name. That is a pretty bizarre experience, and there's not many people that I would consider having those relationships with anymore, because I was lucky enough to be able to make connections with a lot of those people through going out and being social after the show and then eventually doing the A plot. But that is a very bizarre experience to feel like you know so much about someone else, especially like the health part. How do shows find Monique? Do you get sought after, or do you find work yourself? I have only a few times in my life sought after work. I think I can count 3 times I have asked for a job. Every other time it has been a offer off the back of another job from someone who was also involved in the job, or there was someone who was asked for someone for a certain job and they recommended me due to working with me in the past, which I'm pretty proud of. I am very proud of the fact that all of my jobs almost have come from my previous work and then being taken on to something else. But I think that's pretty common for this industry. How do you manage burnout? I make sure I don't get burnt out as much as I possibly can. I prioritize my health, mental and physical, every single day. I give myself space to sleep. I try and make sure that I'm eating a lot. That's the one thing that I kind of fall down on. If I'm too busy, I will just forget to eat, which is very bizarre. But sleep is a big one. I don't put any pressure on myself to seize the day or some shit, because I'm not a daytime work person. So that is my opportunity to sleep in. It's my opportunity to rest and heal my body. Have you made friends at work? Yes, many. What is the ultimate goal? What is your dream show? What is your end game? I have so many. I have a list of shows that I want to cross off my list that I have done. I have a list of cities that I want to work in, a list of work styles that I want to do. I have a list of positions that I want to have achieved. I want to have produced. I want to have created a show. But my ultimate, absolute end of the day, I'm ready to settle down and this is the goal that I live and die on. Goal is a very, very dramatic and wild plan for a venue. It requires a lot of money, the right city to do it in, which I hopefully will figure out during my travels, and the right building, which I'm either going to have to find or build myself. How do you stay hydrated, sane, in good health when you're pulling 12-hour days? I mean, sane, I wish I could tell you. I can't really figure that one out. In good health, again, I manage my burnout. I try to just listen to my body and give it what it needs as much as I can. One of the biggest tips that I have for this, though, is to meal prep, to make sure you have food on hand, to make sure you have snacks on hand, to make sure that you have a water bottle, that you have hydration nearby. I know that sounds really stupid. A good place to nap, if you get a chance, to take a pillow or a blanket or something that you can curl up with and get a power nap, so valuable. What's one piece of professional advice you wish you knew when you started? There is a professional way to say everything. Think about it before you end up in those situations so that when they come up, you have the answer ready to go, because you should never be in a situation where you feel uncomfortable to stand up for yourself, to say no to something, and there is always a professional way to communicate that. It's that, I don't know how to say that in a way that seems professional, that, say professional one more time, that I think stops a lot of people from saying those things. Some of my favorites include putting a stop to personal conversations at work that make you uncomfortable. That can be a simple response of, I don't feel like this is an appropriate workplace conversation. If someone's making you uncomfortable, tell them the way that you are behaving with me is not professional, it's making me uncomfortable and it has to stop. If someone questions you on those things, be a broken record. Repeat the same thing. You don't have to get yourself into this tangle of their bullshit and their conversations and let them try and confuse you because they've been called out on their shit. Think about your boundaries for the workplace before you're in the situations to have to enforce them, and the language that you want to use that reflects who you are as a professional and the ways that you can enforce them easily, and do not be afraid to continue to enforce them. No one should have to go to work feeling uncomfortable. No one should have to do anything they feel unsafe with, and just because someone's in a position of power over you does not mean they're entitled to tell you how to do a job that you feel unsafe in, or to be in a workplace where you don't feel safe, where your health is compromised, where your mental health is compromised. And if that is the kind of workplace they have, you're better off not being there. Everyone is people. Talk to them like people. Present yourself as the professional that you want to be, but do not compromise your well-being for a workplace. What are the biggest reddest flags that you've seen from performers and venues? Not paying staff, not offering or needing contracts. Get a contract. Every discussion that you have about shift times, shifts that you are there for, payment, all of those kind of things, get them in writing. Get them in an email thread, get them in writing so that you have proof that they happened, that they are what you say they are, because if you end up in a situation that is your word against someone else's word, it does often not end well for the person who's being taken advantage of. Even if you have a conversation with someone above you or a co-worker that is regarding those things and it's just a conversation, email them afterwards and be like, hey, just wanted to get it down in writing so that we know the conversation we just had. Here are all the points that we touched. Here's what we discussed. Easy as that. How do you approach a tech if you're unsure of what tech options are available? If you're someone who is putting a show into multiple different venues or wanting to take it with you somewhere, my greatest piece of advice would be to keep it simple. Keep it based on moods more so than a specific thing, especially if you're thinking about lighting going into different venues. Consider colors and moods so that any lighting rig that you end up with can achieve what you've got your heart set on. If you're thinking, I need, even sometimes a spotlight is too much of an ask for a lot of small venues. A spotlight effect, a dramatic lighting effect is something that you could be hoping for instead of that. If you need something specific, be ready to seek out venues that are offering that, or to cover the budget to bring it in yourself. What's the biggest blind spot that performers have when dealing with tech? I think the biggest blind spot is that they think of it as an afterthought, which is not something that I think is a diss at performers. You are there to perform. You've done everything else for your show. The last thing you've thought of is tech. It's not your job. I think the best thing to do with that blind spot is to put it in the hands of someone whose job it actually is. Enlist the help of someone who has the skills and the knowledge to make your vision even better. Your ideas deserve that. Those are all the questions that I'm going to answer for this time. Thank you for everyone who sent me a question. It's given me a lot of ideas of things that I want to cover in the future. If you are enjoying these videos, please make sure that you subscribe and follow my Instagram and keep an eye on my website to know when new videos go live, which should be every Monday. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.